Hello and welcome back to OT the podcast. We're here to talk about watches, time, how to spend it. My name is Andy Green.
I'm Felix Schultz, and Andy, today's guest is, I think, the first who is known by their job title
Yeah, maybe.
that we've had. You know,
Yeah.
he's. I'm scanning through the archives, but I don't think we've had any other ones. I am talking about a guy who you might know from YouTube. He's got some
Definitely.
sort of fairly wild taste in watches and other things in life. We're talking about producer Michael.
None other. Michael Blakey. Yeah, if you've ever logged onto YouTube and you're slightly interested in anything luxury, there's no way you've missed him. So we have a chat with him coming up. It's going to be really interesting. We hear about the man. We actually get into his background a little bit, hear about some of the producing he's done, and of course what he likes in watches and other bits and pieces as well. Before we do that, Felix, what have you been up to?
Do you want to know something?
What's that?
I read an article that validated my entire career choice.
Really? What's that?
It was an article in France 24
What? Okay.
that was talking about how the craftsmanship of Swiss and French mechanical watchmaking now has UNESCO intangible heritage status, casting a spotlight on the art practice for centuries in the Jura mountain region.
Huh.
So there you go. I am part of preserving a rich tradition and culture that goes back, till the Calvinist era. And you just thought I spruiked luxury watches, huh?
And this is just you? This only applies
Yeah, just
to you?
me. Yeah. Well, I think anyone in the watch discussing and debating arena can benefit from the gloss and the veneer of this newfound.
It's just really interesting
legitimacy.
how you didn't say our jobs are worthwhile.
Well, you've got
just said
another
your own.
job as well,
Yeah, but,
and look, to be honest, I know you work for a not-for-profit, and that sort of that's made me feel a little bit crass and a little bit corporate and a little bit sellout. So I've felt that you at some points have been holding it over me with your day job of helping people and making the world a better place, and now I'm finally on the same page as you.
Welcome to the high
I
horse.
feel good. I can sleep. I can go from talking about how a $700,000 watch represents great value to sleeping well at night after I eat some ramen noodles.
Welcome to the high horse, Felix. Well, that's good. I'm glad that's you've spent some time thinking about that new status.
We'll link up that article where the UNESCO says that watchmaking sits at a crossroads of science, art, and technology.
There you go.
That's where I am. I'm at the crossroads. What about you, Andy? Have you been at the crossroads recently?
Well, speaking about crossroads, I've been watching. I watched a film recently on Amazon Prime. A lot of people probably have watched it. Maybe they've hesitated. I certainly did, just because I didn't quite know what I was in for. But then I committed, and boy, oh boy.
Human Centipede?
One of the best films I've watched all year, if not in the last 5 years, it's up there. Palm Springs, right? So Andy Sandberg, Christian Milioti, and of course a pretty strong appearance from J.K. Simmons, with a whole bunch of other kind of actors and actresses and whatever that you've seen around. The basis of the film. You want to hear it?
Well, I just want to know who's Andy Sandberg, if we're not familiar with.
Okay, so Lonely Island, but most popularly Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh yeah, and SNL is one of those guys as well. Cool.
Yeah, SNL, just funny man. But if you've watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I feel like that's where he really kind of came into his own and really developed and polished his craft and became a master of what he does. I think it was Lonely Island where he sort of started off doing these comedy films. Some were really good, some weren't so good. This is just solid. This is high 90s if you're giving it a score out of 100. He plays a character called Niles, which is perfect. That name, literally he made that name up, which again is amazing. You Google Niles, no one but this film comes up. But anyway, it's a film about two wedding guests that basically get stuck in a time loop. And so every day they wake up, they live it over and over again. and sort of it's sort of like a bit of a rom-com based around that. It is just hilarious. Like, it's one of those films where you're laughing out loud, like, heavily throughout. Just really, really enjoyable. I had a great time watching it. So that's definitely one to check out, and we'll have to link that up.
Mate, you've maybe convinced me to resubscribe to Amazon Prime.
Yeah, get on it. I wish I had a code, because everyone will thank me after.
You'll make some bank. Is it also a? Would you say it's like, from your description, it sounds like it's somewhere between 50 First Dates and Looper. Is that accurate?
Yeah, throwing a bit of Groundhog Day,
Okay.
and
And we're there.
51st Dates. Nah, it's
Forgetting
better.
Sarah
It's a
Marshall?
lot better. Like, it's knee slapping good. It is
Knee slapping?
Yeah, it's hilarious.
I'm trying to imagine you slapping your knees now, like a hillbilly.
Like that. Anyway, you've got that on file.
I've been also liking something auditory recently too, Andy Green. You thought I was done with my, career choice validating article, but no, I've got more. And this is something I've been telling you about for some time, and you've been very confused. It's the Adam Buxton podcast.
Yeah, you don't shut up about this.
That's true. So, especially around Christmas time, Adam Buxton is he's a comedian. He's a actor. He's one of those sort of guys in the UK that does a bit of everything, hosts TV shows. He's collabed with Radiohead, which is something I found out when I Googled him. I didn't realize that. And he had a TV show with a guy named Joe Cornish, who is a film guy who did Attack the Block and some other stuff. And he's also good mates, like old school mates, with Louis Theroux.
Okay.
So this podcast is a pretty big deal. Like, a lot of people will probably have heard of it because it's one of the big podcasts out there. But it's the same sort of thing. He interviews like pretty famous people and lots of comedians, and he had bloody what's his name? The Beatle. Which one of the Beatles? McCartney. Ed McCartney on the other day. So big caliber of guests. It's he could learn a little thing from us, but. He's got this covered. He also, the main reason I go on about it to you is because every Christmas over the last few years, he's done an episode with Joe Cornish, which has included a little mention of an incident that Joe Cornish had with Tom Cruise while they were in a meeting in Hollywood around the Tintin movie.
Okay.
And it involved a sketch of the dog from Tintin, Snowy. I'm not going to say anything else because it's quite a good story. But the shtick is, and I think we should try this, is that Joe Cornish teased like a little bit more about the story every year for like the last 4 years. And last episode, so the Christmas 2020 episode, wrapped it up in spectacular fashion.
We could do this because I have a Tom Cruise adjacent story.
Is it Miles Fisher?
No. Well, we could do that, but you know this, because you were present, sort of. But about the time I met Nicole Kidman without realizing.
Oh, yes.
You remember that? Yeah,
that can be
maybe
our
we
shtick.
pull that out later. Yeah, because I retold that story recently to a mate, and he was like, "That's actually hilarious. Like, you should tell that. You should tell that on the pod." So
Okay, let's remember that. We can do that.
The Nicole Kidman story. All right, we'll get into it.
We'll shoot to podcast fame. The other thing that's good about it, and I think we could also steal this, is he starts episodes as he takes his dog for a walk, like, in the countryside. Do you reckon we could do that with our cats?
I mean, we've got the gear. Throw them up on our shoulders, go for a walk.
I don't think it'd quite work so well. But anyway, it's a really great podcast, very funny, very insightful, all the rest. Adam Buxton podcast, worth a listen.
You know what else is worth listening to?
What?
This ad break we're about to take before we get into the call with Michael Blakey.
This episode of OT the Podcast is brought to you by our sponsors, Longine. We've spoken a bit about their Spirit line, so today we thought we'd mix it up and have a look at one of their recent releases.
Which one's that, Felix?
The Longine's Legend Diver in bronze.
Bronze, baby. Exactly. It's a watch that I had on loan for a little while last month, and it genuinely surprised me on the wrist. Watch fans love the Longine Legend Diver, and this new release in bronze certainly made a splash when it was first dropped.
Indeed. Now, Andy, what exactly did you love about it?
Well, firstly, the clean dial, which is unlike other Legend Divers. It doesn't have a date. That aside, the bronze case is, of course, very cool. And with a watch like this, though, it's really about the dial color. And it's really interesting. At first, you would say maybe green with this sort of outward gradient, but come night, it's almost black and it really blends in with the inner bezel. Green and bronze go together like Felix and Andy, and with the pink gold hands, those are just the cherry on top. Another nice touch, the domed crystal. Overall, though, this is a piece that when you strap it on, you can immediately tell that the finer points have really been thought out. From the detail on the crown to the engraving on the case back, it's just a nice package. Everything feels really balanced and symmetrical.
Sounds great, Andy. Talk to me about the specifications.
Do you want to know the price first?
Nope, no, I'm good. I am on Longine.com right now, and I can see that it is 4475 Aussie dollars. Like I said, hit me with those vital statistics.
1-2 punch. All right. So yeah, for 4475 Aussie, you're getting the Longines Legend Diver in the 42mm case, which is titanium on the case back. It's waterproof to 300 meters and features an internal rotating bezel. Like I said, the hands and markers have been treated with the finest Swiss Superluminova, and it's sold on a really nice brown leather strap. Obviously, it's an automatic watch. The movement L888. That's giving you 64 hours of power reserve.
That's pretty decent. Who is this watch for, Andy?
Yeah, so this is a watch, being in bronze, it carries a heap of personality on the wrist. Given the diving nature of the Longines Legend Diver, it screams weekend. And I think these days you can really get away with sort of 9 to 5ing a bronze watch. So if perhaps you're looking for a unique watch that's built to last, that's going to develop and collect some patina along the way, the Legend Diver in bronze is going to be an excellent choice. And as you know, sort of that bronze patina is going to be unique to you and your watch.
Yeah, 100%. That's a really good way to build a bond with your bronze watch. So head to longines.com to discover the collection today and even buy it online. We'll link it up, of course, as well as all those beautiful pics you took that, and, we're all across our Instagram and everywhere.
And don't forget the free shipping and 24-month warranty when you buy directly from Longine online.
Let's get back to that show.
Felix.
Yes, Andy.
Podcaster Felix.
It's
time to
nice.
time to do it. It's time to get producer Michael on the phone. Let's do it. We've got a guest on the line. He is arguably the most famous producer on YouTube. He's a record producer. He's a TV producer. He's a composer, arranger, artist manager, songwriter, and naturally a musician himself. He's also a natural and passionate watch and supercar collector. And he shares his passion on YouTube with a very, very big audience. So on the line, we have Michael Blakey, better known as Producer Michael. How you going, Michael?
I am doing very, very well. Thank you so much for having me on your show and for that amazing, exaggerated introduction.
I don't know how exaggerated it is. You seem anyone who's watched your content or knows anything about you knows that you're a man of many talents and that you seem to be extremely busy. For people that don't know you, though, I want to just kick off with this question: who are you, and what do you actually do?
Gosh, I wish I could answer that in a sentence. I'm in the entertainment industry. I started out as a musician. Worked okay for a short period of time, but found myself more behind a control board than behind a drum kit. I played drums, and ultimately I started producing. I don't want to say I was really very good at it, but what happened was the record labels I was working with, especially on one of the first songs I ever did, were extremely talented, and they had a great marketing team, and they managed to catapult one of my productions to the top of the charts. It wasn't a good song, but it did really well. It got nominated for a Grammy, and
Wow.
there you go, put me on the map.
What was it?
Well, I can't say that because I just said it wasn't a very good song.
What are any songs that people listening might know, that you've had your hand in? Any particular sort of chart toppers, good or bad?
Goodness me, I've worked with so many wonderful artists, ranging from pop artists to like what you would call crooners. I don't know in Australia if you would know some of the artists, but let me give you an example of one of the finest artists I've ever worked with. As a man by the name of Engelbert Humperdink. Do you know who he is?
Not
I'm giving my
not
age
as
away
I
here.
must admit, not as much as my parents would be familiar with Mr. Humperdink's work.
I don't know who it is, Felix, but
Well, I was very young at the time. I'm digging myself an enormous hole here, aren't I? No, realistically, the reason I mention that name is because probably the best voice I have ever worked with. Just a dream. The man was so talented and still is talented. He still performs to this day. It was one of the blessings in my career to be able to produce music for him.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I'm trying to sort of maybe come up with an analog for the sort of the 2020 version. I guess maybe sort of like Michael Bublé in terms of his pop cultural impact, maybe. I don't know. I could be far off the mark there. Feel free to correct me.
So I actually produced a song for him. It was about 7 or 8 years ago, and it went to the top of the chart. So it's not really that long ago. I did a dance rendition of the song "Quando, Quando, Quando,"
Wow.
and another one of the song "Release Me," and they did incredibly well. So as I say, like 7, 8 years, maybe less than that, 6, 7 years ago. So I don't want to really date myself, but it's semi-recent.
I mean, you're a veteran with a long career. Maybe that's the way to put it.
Yeah, I've been doing it quite a while, and before I go deeper into my antique recordings, maybe we should change topic.
Well, I've got a more general question. It's something that I'm not entirely familiar with, and I'm sure people listening to won't be across it. What does it mean to be a producer? What do you do?
I've actually asked myself that very question. What is it that I do? In a nutshell, people mistake sometimes music producer with a television producer or a movie producer. They're very, very different roles. I do both of those things, and I'll try and explain to you what they are. A music producer is the guy that goes into the recording studio with the artist. He sits in the control room and he listens to the performance of the artist. With that said, he then, tells the engineers, change this, change that, change the other. And he speaks to the artist continually, telling him how to perform the vocal, if it's a vocal performance, or instruments, if someone's playing the guitar, slow down your melody or whatever it might be. He's the guy ultimately that you hear at the end of the recording. So the musician plays the tracks, the vocalist sings the music, and the producer puts the whole thing together. And he works in turn with a sound engineer, and together they come up with the sounds that you hear.
Fascinating. I've always wondered. That sounds very cool. And you must have a very talented ear to sort of be able to bring it all together.
Well, I think in my case, more luck than judgment, but they seem to work. So I'm not going to change anything.
No, I was going to say, so you've had this amazing career, in the music industry, and I didn't know who you were until probably 3-4 years ago on YouTube. So how did you go from sort of I guess what you would call the day job, as cool and successful as it was, to being a YouTube star? Like, how did you end up on that platform?
Well, to continue what I was saying about production, because it flows together with what I'm about to answer your question with.
Perfect.
A producer is in the movie and television world very different to in the music world. A producer actually puts the teams together that create the visual that you're about to see. So a music producer is somewhat equal to a director of a television show or a movie. So I watched all of these things happening because I got into the production side of television, really, and I produced some big television specials. And I looked at this and I thought, this could be a lot of fun. And one of my friends, who is also now my videographer, he said to me, "Michael, why don't you do a YouTube channel?" And my instant response to that was, "Who on earth would want to watch me on YouTube? I'm not like an 18-year-old that throws eggs at people." And that seems to be what's popular on YouTube. So he said, no, you have a very, very interesting lifestyle, and I'm a little bit eccentric, I admit that. he said that people would enjoy it. So whatever, okay. So this was, I think, late 2017 when I started the channel. We were in a place called Monterey, California. Every year in California, they have a very special car event where people come from all over the world. They bring the supercars, their classic cars, Pebble Beach,
Yep.
the Concours Elegance, very famous event. And I was there with a couple of my cars and a bunch of my friends. We're just going up there to have fun. And ultimately, it was an opportunity to make a video. So Adam said to me, let's just shoot a bunch of cars and you can talk about them and see what happens. So I said, okay, whatever. And we did. And he edited it, put it together. And he said, okay, we're going to release it. I think it was October of 2017. And he said, if we get 1,000 views on this, then, we can continue with the channel. I think it'll be quite good. So, okay. And I'm thinking 1,000 views. There's never going to be 1,000 people going to watch this. Anyway, the first week we had, I think, about 15 or 16,000 views. And we were astounded. Well, I rephrase that. I was astounded. Adam was, he was, hey, this is good. And I was like, oh my goodness me, what made this happen? And then we just continued from that point, and it grew and grew and grew. And my main goal and ultimatum with that was I wanted to try and inspire people, because my history, it wasn't always easy for me. I went through some very challenging parts of my life, and I was able to become successful. So I thought, hey, if I can tell people the story that, if I did it, you could do it, anybody can do it, why not? And the channel just grew and grew and grew, and I started to put different types of content on the channel, but all in the luxury lifestyle type of thing, like lifestyle of the rich and famous, trying not to be boastful as I did it, which is sometimes difficult. You're showing very expensive things, and it's hard to come across, humble, and that's always been my goal and motive. I try to be that way in person. So anyway, it worked, and people like it, so I keep doing it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I just had a quick check, and you've had 150 million plus views. So, what's
Can
that?
I
A
brag?
million views?
Can
a
I
million
brag?
views a day?
May I brag?
You can, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, so my channel, Producer Michael channel, has had 2.6 billion impressions.
Wow.
Billion with a B.
Wow.
I think
I know, right?
And you've just hit 1 million subscribers, and that's the hard thing, is getting those subscribers, right? The views and the downloads and the impressions are one thing, but the 1 million, that's a nice plaque coming your way. And obviously you've explained where it started, but where's it going? Where do you want this sort of YouTube thing to take you? Because it's come, it's become a little bit serious for you in terms of, the dedication, the input, and the output. It's very regular. You're working a little bit with brands, but I just want to know where you see this going.
So, I'm trying to, provide entertainment as well as educational, fun things to see. And, I found now people love to see mansion tours. They love to see high-end jewelry, watches, supercars, et cetera, that type of platform. And since the channel has grown to the extent that it has, I'm being approached by all sorts of companies, brands, some very, very big names, to put them on the channel and talk about these various different products. I would say 90% of them I reject, because in order for me to actually put it on my channel and talk about it in an enthusiastic manner, I've got to actually like it. So I've told myself I'm not going to sell out. I'm going to try and show people what I believe is great stuff, good value. That doesn't necessarily mean to say I'm right. It just means it's my opinion. I also try to get discounts on absolutely everything that I buy to pass on to my audience. I understand that the majority of my audience cannot afford some of these luxury items, but if I can get discounts to help them out, it certainly doesn't do any damage.
That's
Love
true.
that.
And something you sort of said a question or two ago that I think is worth coming back to, and I think it's, maybe at the heart of your appeal in some ways, because a lot of people have, like you say, mansions and cars and watches. But what really strikes me about what you do is that humbleness, or perhaps an authenticity. I really get that sense that you're enthusiastic and you believe in what you're talking about, which I think is really, really hard to do. Like, and as you've just said, you turn a lot of opportunities down, I suppose. But
What I think one of the things that differentiates me from a lot of these other influencers, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any of the other influencers, but when I talk about watches or cars, jewelry, whatever, I actually own it. So
You're a customer.
I'm a customer. It's mine. It's my product that I'm talking about. I don't take somebody else's watch and review it. I've never done that. If I don't own it, I won't review it. So it's a genuine opinion. I'm not being given something. I'm not being paid to review somebody's product. It's my product, and I'm telling the world about it in my in my eyesight, in my view. And as I say, it's not necessarily gospel. It's just my honest opinion as an owner of that product.
Yeah, okay. And what I was sort of wondering is, how do you manage that sort of tension to have something that is new content, or something that your audience will appreciate? If
I'm sorry. Say that one more time.
No,
I'm
that's
sorry.
okay. How do you manage if there's a tension between sort of putting out really good content or putting out regular content, with sort of playing that YouTube game and just doing what you want to do? Like, if you don't have anything to promote, or any, you haven't got a new watch recently, will you just not talk about it, or are you always sort of looking for a new angle to create sort of new videos?
Well, I'm always trying to create new content. I don't want to, be stereotyped as, just watches, for example, or just a specific brand of watch. What I like to do is vary things, but keeping the lifestyle the same. For example, one of the things that I don't own is all the mansions that I show, and I know people love to see these mansion tours. It's an opportunity to get inside some of these wonderful houses in Beverly Hills or Malibu, or where Hollywood Hills, wherever it might be. And this is something that I think is always accepted and loved on my channel. So I like to throw those in semi regularly. And then watch content. There's a lot of watch lovers out there. They like to see all the different types of watches, and I'm in a very fortunate position to have a lot of watches. I do, my watch collection, part 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I'm up to 4 now. People enjoy them, and they're saying, "When's the next part coming out? When's part 5 coming out?" Well,
So,
either I have to
gotta
go
wait and
deeper
see.
into my bank vault or go shopping, one of the two. And if I go shopping, I'll take the camera with me. So, that's kind of fun. Another thing I'm known for is I can be, I guess, compared to the present day Austin Powers, I'm a little bit eccentric in the way that I dress and perhaps act. But yeah, so I've done clothing tours, shopping sprees, all of those types of things, and I just try to keep it upbeat and fun.
That's what I really love about your channel. Sorry to cut you off, but that's what I really love, is that you do what you like and you share what you like, and I don't think you're really dictated by the game of YouTube, as we've kind of covered now. Like, you're not out there trying to win at YouTube and make a career out of it. You've already got this fantastic career and very well established. And so your approach is very pure and it's very authentic, and it's kind of, you don't seem to really be driven by trying to get the views, or create the same sort of content over and over again. And what that has meant, in my opinion, is that you can put up all of this different stuff. Like, there are watch YouTubers, there are car YouTubers, there are, real estate YouTubers. You're able to kind of dip into all of the different things that you like and still get that really great response. And I think that comes down to the authenticity that you do carry and the passion that is super clear with your personality and with your approach to all of these things and the way that you kind of present it.
And I think
what I want
to. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, go. No, go.
No, I was going to say one of the things that I think attracts people to my channel is because they never know what they're going to get.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And but whatever you do get, it's really fun. And I just love I love watching you, and I've watched heaps of your stuff, and I just love watching it because it's just fun, and it's just fun to see, and it's fun to see the enjoyment that you get out of it. There's nothing fake. There's no there's no deception going on. But what I want to ask you, because we're a watch podcast, right? I want to ask you where the watch collecting started, and if you even remember at this point. But where did it begin for you?
I do know where it started. My father was a great inspiration to me, and he used to treat himself to certain things. It could be anything.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a box of cigars. It was never the same thing. Anytime that he achieved something within his career, within his business, and he said to me, it's always good to have something that reminds you of a job well done. So when you achieve something, treat yourself to something that you can keep. Treat yourself to something that will last a long time. It doesn't necessarily have to be expensive, and that was really where this whole thing came from. As a young kid, I used to play golf quite a lot, quite well actually,
Mm-hmm.
and then I gave it up. But there was one time where I was at the golf club, and there was a gentleman who was a visitor. He was a very old gentleman. I think he was in his 90s at the time, but he played 9 holes of golf every single day. And I remember being in the locker room with him one day and just chatting about nothing. I was a young kid, maybe 15 years of age, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he was wearing this beautiful, shiny gold Rolex watch.
Oof.
And I looked at that and I said, that is a really beautiful watch. And he said, it's a symbol of success. I bought myself this so that I knew that every single time that I looked at my wrist, I knew that I'd done something right. If everything else goes wrong in my life, I did something right to be able to buy this in the first place. And I thought, wow, that's crazy. I'm going to buy myself a watch when I do something that's great. And that's where this whole thing started. And I really got into watches. I love watches. I'm not the guy that knows anything about what's inside the case.
Mm-hmm.
The movement is the movement, and whether it's got 1,000 pieces or 10 pieces, that I couldn't tell you, and I don't care. I buy them by the aesthetic, what I think appeals to me, and what I like, and what's fun. So yeah, that's how I did it.
What was the first sort of big piece that you got yourself as a symbol for yourself?
So the first watch I ever bought myself, let me be totally honest. My father bought me a lovely Omega watch. I think I was 14, and that was a Flight Master.
Very nice.
You probably don't know what that
cool.
is. Oh, you know that
Omega.
watch?
Omega, yeah.
Omega Flight Master.
Very cool.
I had won a national drumming event in England, and it was a really big deal at the time. And my dad bought me this watch, and then I bought myself when I think I was 16 or 17. I bought myself my very first Rolex, which was a stainless steel Submariner.
Nice.
Do you still have those watches?
I have the Omega. I do not have the Submariner. I do have Submariners now, numerous actually, but not that specific one, unfortunately. And looking back, if I'd have kept it, it was probably worth a fortune.
Yeah. I mean, it's always the way though. You sort of the things you let go, and I mean, I always say that you never regret buying a Rolex. It's always selling because either you want it back and you can't get it, or you want it back and it's too expensive and it's gone crazy.
Exactly.
So that was a young Michael winning drumming contest, which is a cool way to treat yourself. And the Flightmaster for me, I think that was the first watch I ever really caught my attention. And I think I posted to Instagram. I didn't even own it at the time, but obviously in the years since your tastes have evolved, you've developed, your career's exploded, and as we've kind of covered off, you have a unique style. You yourself call it eccentric. What sort of watches are you drawn to today?
Oh wow. I have a vast range of watches, from, I was going to say, the tame to the extravagant, and I'm trying to think, what do I have that's tame? Probably nothing. Um, so, so, so from wild to crazy is where I am right now. I That's not true. I do have some very sensible watches.
You do, yeah.
I just got the new Rolex Daytona Panda stainless steel one.
Nice.
Lovely,
When I say just, that was yesterday.
Wow.
Um,
beautiful. Congrats.
Thank you. Recently, I also bought the new Kermit, the 41 millimeter Kermit. So those are two very normal watches, I would say. And then other than that, they go a little bit on the flamboyant side of things.
They do, but you've got brands like AP, you've got RM, you've got, what did I see recently? Uh, well,
Jacobs.
You've got a lot of Jacobs, don't you?
A lot of Jacobs. I have a lot of Rolexes. Um, I I have a few APs, not as many as Jacobs and Rolexes, but I do have a few APs. I love APs. I think they're a great brand. Very very chunky watch. Um, I think the first one I ever got was the rose gold offshore with the rubber bezel.
Yep.
And I saw somebody wearing that at a music event, and I just fell in love with the watch. I had no idea what it was. And this was probably, 2002, 2001, somewhere around there. And I thought it would be a relatively inexpensive watch. And I had no idea. I went to the AP dealer and found out it wasn't that inexpensive. And I could not, in my mind, tell myself why I'd be paying so much money for a rubber strap and a rubber bezel on this watch, but I bought it anyway.
Yeah, sure.
Love that.
This is one thing I'd be interested in knowing is, so what is it with musicians and watches? Like, so often they're sort of seen as you sort of see the watch prominently displayed. Is there something in it that goes beyond the status, or is it just sort of status and luxury?
I don't know. I know a lot of rappers really go for the bling bling watches, beyond the bling that I would wear. They like that, and I think it suits their lifestyle and their music videos and everything. Um, I don't know too many musicians that are really into watches. I have a Rolex Safari or
Lovely.
Leopard, which is
Very
a
cool.
crazy watch, and Steven Tyler from
Oh,
Aerosmith,
nice.
he has that same watch, as does Nicolas
Yeah.
Cage. But
Amazing.
you need to be somewhat of a wild person to get away with that. But I love that watch, one of my favorites.
It's an amazing watch. It's just so quirky, and a brand that I think that I've realized you've picked up lately is I always mess the name up, but Konstantin Shakin, the Russian brand, right? Now,
Now, shaking, yeah.
Shakin.
I'm not sure.
One of us
I don't
is
know
right.
either.
Yeah.
The
Let's,
other one is
let's
in
call it
trouble.
CK. Or is
K,
or
it's
no,
KC.
KC.
It's KC. Right? KC. Yeah, KC. Yeah, he'll scream
You've got a
at
few
me.
pieces. Well, the Russians will come. You've got a few pieces. Now that's an independent brand. Now it's more wild, but it's also like very respected horology. Like it's a very legit brand. How did you come across it? And what pieces do you have from there?
I have two. I have
Mm-hmm.
the Joker and the Clown.
Yep.
I think they are very, very fun. The face actually doesn't ever show the same face twice because the
Yep.
tongue is constantly moving, and apparently, even in a month cycle, for the face to be the same is practically impossible. So it's never duplicating itself; it's always different on both of those pieces. And I just found them amusing because you can look at the watch and it's completely cross-eyed at one point, and you can't
Yeah.
help but smile. Its tongue sticking out at you, and it's just, wow, what a fun piece. And the movement that goes behind making that, again, I don't know that much about movements, but I do know that's very complicated
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
difficult
Yeah.
to do. He does everything himself. And I was just in love with the brand because it's wacky. I'm wacky. So I figured, hey, why not?
That Constantine Shake, and they're sort of fairly new, like they're sort of getting a bit of attention around them. What are you sort of looking at the moment? What's exciting you in the world of, eccentric watches, or, sort of the out there stuff?
So I've been intrigued recently with the way that watches are moving as far as, how much they're selling for, and they're all over the place, and they're really going crazy. So a relatively new brand, Richard Mille.
Yeah.
I have a few of their pieces, and I have been amazed. I think that's the word, and also shocked to see what's happening with these watches. I have a couple of these watches that are at least double, if not more, on the secondary market from what I paid for them, and I'm
Yeah.
asking myself, how did this happen? Is it the greatest watch in the world? No. Is it a good watch?
Nope.
Sure, it is. Um, the movement, if you want to change the date, you have to go past 12 o'clock 3 times. I don't understand that, never did, but it's quite remarkable. But the marketing has been insane. I mean, my hat is off to them for them to be able to tell people that, like the RM29, it just tells you the time. It doesn't do anything other than tell you the time. I think it might have the date. And they started, I don't know, 120 grand or something like that, US dollars. And I'm asking myself, how is that possible? Why are people lining up to buy these, and how come they can't buy them? They're selling over, and then some of these watches that are, 200,000 list are selling for $400,000, $500,000, $600,000. And they've been very smart. They've put out a product. They've given them to some of the biggest names in the world to wear, given them a ton of money along with the watch to wear it, and then made them unavailable. So brilliant.
Can I ask you? So you obviously, the reason you have your channel, which we've covered, the inspirational element, but also kind of showing off, this lifestyle and these products, and where you see with products that you own, recommending and getting these discounts, and introducing people to brands. With a brand like Richard Mille, or even the steel Rolex that you have, having this full spectrum of really high end luxury pieces, but also more entry level, if we'd call them that, steel pieces, from Panerai and Rolex and that sort of thing. When you wear your your Richard Mille that you got at retail, is there a disconnect for you? Like, do you go, this is a very expensive, $200,000 watch. I don't understand why it's $500,000. Is there a disconnect between the hype and the actual sort of ownership experience?
That's a very interesting question. I don't really know the answer to that. I don't, anytime I put a watch on my wrist, I don't really think about, what did it cost?
Yeah.
But if I was to recommend to somebody to buy a watch, Richard Mille would be the last brand I would
Okay.
recommend for multiple reasons. One of
No, that's a
which,
good answer. Yeah.
I think it's going to crash and burn.
Yep.
It can't hold itself up with Patek and Rolex and Vacheron and those types of names that have been around a century. It just can't. And again, I don't want to say that it's not a good watch. It's just not in the same league as far as the history and everything that
Yeah.
stands for. But no, I think Rolex has done an incredible job of marketing, but Richard Mille has gone even further with this craziness. If you were to go out on the street and ask 100 people what's the best watch in the world, I think 99 of them would say Rolex, right? Because
Sure.
it's drilled into people that not only is it a brilliant timepiece, and it is. I mean, these watches are just great. They hold their value. It's a status symbol. It's a sign of success. It's incredible value. It'll last forever. Great job. And then, you take a Richard Mille, and what is it, 10, 15 years old, the brand, you couldn't give them away when they first came out. And now you can't buy one. Um, this has to level itself out. It has to change, in my opinion. And again, um, I own a ton of Richard Milles. I'm embarrassed to tell you how many of them I have, but what I will tell you is at least 50% of them have broken, and they've needed attention, and something's gone wrong, or a screw's fallen out of the case,
Interesting.
or just crazy stuff that you wouldn't expect from a brand of that price range. And they'll probably hate me for saying it, but anybody that owns one knows that I'm telling the
Mm.
truth. So, at the end of the day, I think it has to equalize itself at some point, and I think it can never take over from Rolex.
Yeah, that is a very. I'm willing to bet that you've none of your Rolexes have really had any level of the same mechanical problems. What
I have dropped Rolexes on the floor. I've done crazy things. I've never had one go wrong.
exactly? One thing, this sort of you're talking about the value of Richard Mille and how they've sort of gone up and up and up over time. Is that something that you consider when you're buying any watch? Do you look at it and go, "Oh, I wonder if this is going to lose money or gain money," or do you just buy it because you like the watch?
I absolutely consider that, regardless of how much money one may have in the bank. I think it's very important to look at the economics of anything, and I certainly do that. I also fight for every dollar. So, if I see something and I honestly think it's going to depreciate dramatically, I will, and if I want to buy it, I will fight for a substantial discount. Otherwise, I won't buy that piece.
That's a great answer, and I think that's a very pragmatic approach. And that leads me to another question that I have. It's around something we've sort of lightly touched on, but it's the importance of a connection to a brand, because I think you're the sort of person who really puts value on that itself. And as we've covered off, these smaller independent brands that you have, brands like Jacob and Co. in particular. I know that you're very sort of you're very close with that brand, and I think that I watch the videos and I see that the personal connection is a value to you. But how important and how has sort of the access to people that are actually the namesake of a brand, or very close to it, how important is that to you, and how has that sort of shifted the watches you've bought lately?
Massively. Um, when someone has enough money in their pocket to go out and buy a luxury item. I'm not talking about having to be a multi-millionaire or billionaire.
Hmm.
If you have X amount of dollars that you're going to buy a watch with, you have options. You have many, many,
Hmm.
many options. And I think in buying a watch, you're not just buying that timepiece, you're buying an experience. And the way that you're treated in a boutique, the way that the after service is, these are all very important factors. The reason that I have bought so many Jacob watches is because I've actually developed a friendship with Jacob.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that would happen with someone that goes in and buys one watch. I bought a lot of watches from him, and he wasn't the salesperson on the floor, but he certainly noticed when I became a customer. And I never asked to meet him. He came one time. I was in New York in their flagship boutique. He came down and said, "Michael, I want to personally meet you and thank you for your patronage. You've been an awesome supporter of the brand, etc., etc. I'd love to take you out for dinner." This was a few years ago, and since then we have become great friends. Has that made me buy more watches? No, I bought the same amount of watches that I would have
Hmm.
had that not have happened. But the entire experience of buying the watch, the way that I was taken care of, there's very few brands. Jacob is one of those brands that does things out of the ordinary. For example, the first time I bought a watch from him, I bought the watch, and it wasn't from Jacob, it was just from the boutique. I left the boutique, went home, and that was the end of it. About a week later, a lovely package arrives
Hmm.
at my door, and it was a very, very nice gift from Jacob and Co. thanking me for their patronage.
Lovely.
And then about maybe a month later, I get a follow-up phone call. I just want to make sure that you're happy with your watch, that it's keeping good time, and just a lovely, lovely experience. Anyway, that was the end of that. And then I don't know, maybe 8-9 months later, I was back in New York City, and I popped in and I bought another piece. And next 3-4 weeks later, a massive gift arrived. I won't tell you what it is because I don't know if everybody gets the same types of things. But I was shocked at what he sent me or what the company sent me. No, but extraordinary gift and totally unexpected. And I was like, wow, talk about a fabulous brand to deal with. They had no need to do that. I've already spent the money. And after, what I spent, I can't imagine they thought I'd be back next week to buy another one. So it was just lovely. And then they invited me to an event in Italy, all expenses paid, etc., etc. Beautiful. Vacheron have done similar things. Vacheron, Mont Blanc took me to Switzerland to visit the factory. Obviously, there's some kind of agenda there and what have you, but there's no obligation whatsoever. That's what I call a buying experience. Vacheron had a lovely event for some of their customers in Aspen a few years ago. They flew everybody in for 3 or 4 days and put on these beautiful events. Didn't even try to sell a watch to anybody, which I thought was very classy. And it was like a family. These are the things that make watch buying such a pleasurable thing. And I love it.
Absolutely, and I completely agree. That's what everyone sort of says makes watch collecting great. You mentioned earlier that people have options when they're looking to buy, say, a luxury watch. What would you say there's someone that in your comment section that sort of says, I'm going to buy my first luxury watch. What would you advise or suggest to them?
I get actually asked that question a lot, and I answer on my Instagram. I try and answer as many people as I possibly can. It's too much to handle on YouTube. There's too many comments, but I always say follow your heart. Follow what your eye tells you is good and something that falls within your budget. I also tell people if they're buying a watch to enjoy, don't buy it as an investment. If it goes up, fantastic. If it goes down, who cares? You didn't buy it because you were looking to make money on it. You bought it because you want to enjoy it. And a watch is a piece of art. It's jewelry, and it tells you the time, and it has a history. And I think if you put those combinations together, that's what you should follow when you buy a watch. Don't go, oh, I want a Rolex because Rolex is the watch to have.
Yeah.
Buy a Rolex if you want a Rolex, but not for that reason.
I really like that logic. I agree with it. I think because if you buy it because you love it, then you wear it and you get that enjoyment out of it. It being art, it's also nice to look at, and if it is investment, it goes up. If it goes down, big deal. There's just so many different kind of ways that you can combine the approach. Someone else who really likes watches that I've seen you hanging out with lately, Kevin O'Leary. It looks like you've started a bit of a watch club with him. Can we join? What's going on there?
So Kevin's a great guy. He's a good friend of mine. In fact, we were just texting 5 minutes before I jumped on this call with you, and I told him I had to go. I'm doing a podcast, and I know you've spoken to Kevin, right?
We haven't locked him in yet, but if you have fun, send him a text and tell him to come on.
I will make sure he does. How's that?
Yeah, love it. That'd be amazing.
I will make sure he does. Well, I rephrase that. I can't force him. I will recommend he does.
Just invite him over. We'll hit record, and just in the background, we'll catch the conversation.
But
seriously, I watched both of those videos of you guys kind of hanging out and talking watches, and it's sort of the two very different collections. And what I want to kind of hear for the listeners who haven't had a chance to watch those videos, but what stood out from his collection to you? Because it's very different to what you have.
So, obviously, he is known for his red bands on
Yeah.
his watches, and the red bands are specifically for television. They are
Yep.
for Shark Tank because in TV production, the wardrobe insisted that there's some form of continuity. I don't know why they would care with the watch, but apparently they did. And the first watch that Kevin was wearing had a red band, so he's continued that theme. So every time you see him on Shark Tank, he has a red band on a watch. I won't go into too much of that detail because you get him on the show, he'll tell you himself.
Yeah.
His taste is not that dissimilar to mine. Literally today, he sent me a text with a picture of a watch that he just bought. And it shouldn't have been a Mr. Wonderful watch. It should have been a Michael watch. This is, it is wild. Again, I'm not going to spoil that because I don't think
give us a
it's been
clue?
announced to anybody.
Any hints?
It's shiny.
Okay.
It will certainly sparkle in the sun.
All right. Okay.
But that's as much as I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
But
Diamonds.
I was shocked. I said, "Wow, what a gorgeous piece, and certainly something I would wear in a heartbeat." So, yeah.
Were you, because, and I think there was a bit of discovery that took place. You had brands he hadn't heard of. He had brands you hadn't heard of. Were you influenced after that sort of encounter with his sort of deep collection? Did you go out and pick anything up? Did you grab yourself a Ming? What'd you get?
I didn't get a Ming. I got a Vortex.
Oh, nice.
Very cool.
Which is a watch that basically they restore old vintage American pocket watches, and they turn them into wristwatches. They make a case. They try to keep its heritage, and I found that to be very, very cool. I also found the story how Kevin got his very cool. So I contacted them, and then bingo, I bought one. And I haven't got it yet. It's being made. I custom built it together with the custom team, so hopefully I'll get that in January. I also I haven't pulled the trigger on this yet, but I'm very interested in a Grand Seiko. Not that I really fit the format of person to wear a Grand Seiko, but everybody's telling me I should have one. So as a watch collector, I will indeed. I'll get one.
Yeah, cool. A lot of love for Grand Seiko. Another brand that we've sort of spotted on your channel a little bit is actually a brand with an Australian link, which is unusual. Aventi Watchers, who you've done some work with. What can you tell us about them?
So they reached out to me and they said, we have a very unique watch that we're making. And, they followed my channel, saw all the watches that I have on my channel and really enjoyed it and asked if I would review it. And I said, well, I can't say yes or no. Send me some to have a look at and I'll send them back to you. If I like it and I think it's something that's, worthy of a very positive review, because what I will not do, I won't put something on my channel and destroy it. I won't say, oh, this is bad, this is horrible. I won't do that. I'd just rather pass on it, right? And
good approach.
They sent me these watches and I looked at them, and I looked at them with two different objectives. One, what is this watch? And two, is it value for money? Because they make tourbillon watches and they have three versions. They have a steel or titanium version, which is a couple of grand. I'm always, when I say anything money-wise, US dollars. Then they have a clear sapphire tourbillon case, which is about 5,000. And then they have a blue sapphire. I think they may even have more colors now. I'm not sure. That's about 10,000. So I was intrigued. They sent me the watches. And quite honestly, I couldn't believe the sapphire case ones were extraordinary. They were really, really well made. And I had prototypes. I didn't have the finished product. I had a couple of criticisms, which I told them about. And I mentioned it when I did the review. But I did do the review on them. And I thought they're incredible value for money. I did see also in the comments people saying, oh, it's got a Chinese tourbillon Who cares where it's made? It's a tourbillon. It's well made. At least it appeared to be well made to me. The movement, when you move the crown, it tells you a lot about a watch, and I found it to be very smooth. They kept great time. They had a decent power reserve. So I thought, hey, for that money, yeah, I'll tell people about them, because the opportunity to buy a tourbillon watch for that type of money, let alone in a sapphire case, I thought was extraordinary.
Yeah, that's really cool. We've reached out to the guys to try and get a piece to review ourselves, obviously wanting to support our fellow Australian brethren. What I want to ask you, given the time of year that we're approaching, you're famous for buying and doing these videos where you buy your team watches as kind of end of year presents or in the form of bonuses. Are you hiring, especially with sort of the prevalence of remote working? I know a couple of guys in Melbourne, Australia, that might be a good fit.
So the answer would be, definitely. I need a few hundred guys, but unfortunately, we're in this COVID situation, so we're going to have to wait till another time.
That's a very diplomatic answer. That's the gentlest rejection I think I've ever had.
Gotta shoot your shot sometimes. Sometimes you just have to throw it out there. No, but those are really cool videos. No. The real question. I just want to make a little gag. The real question is, how do you buy watches for other people? Because you sort of go in and buy 10, 15 watches. But being a watch collector, and this is my personal experience, and I know that Felix says the same thing, but we find it really difficult to kind of separate what we like with what the person who's getting it will actually like. So how do you approach it? Especially with like a dozen.
That's a great question. So one of the questions I asked myself, when let me backtrack a little bit. If I make a television show, which is something that I do, I make a lot of TV shows, I have to look at it from two different angles. Angle one is, what do I want to make? And angle two, which is much more important, what does the viewer want to see, right? And I did the same thing when buying these watches. First question I asked myself, would I rather have a brand new watch, which is less expensive, or would I rather have a new watch, a used watch of a really high-end brand that looks like new? What would I rather have? So I asked myself that question. I came up, well, I'd rather have the better watch that's used as long as it looks like new. And then I said to myself, well, if I was getting that as a present, would I want a new one or a used one? So I said, well, I'm happy with the used one, especially if it's an upgraded watch. And then I said to myself, well, how do I know if I'm getting the right watch for the right person? So I kind of left my opportunities a little bit open, because this is what I did. So when I selected the watches, I kind of selected a variety. And when I gave them to people, I said to them, well, if you don't like what you've got and you find somebody that doesn't like what they've got, I won't have any hard feelings if you want to swap it. Because quite honestly, I couldn't remember what I gave to who. and I couldn't. That was on one of my experiences. That was with Seth at Essential Watches. And then I did a very similar thing at Jacob & Co. I actually bought, they were all new watches. But again, the same problem ensues. Who do you give what to? And some of them have different retail prices to others. So I did it kind of by rank.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing, in any sort of way you cut it, especially with personal taste and all that sort of stuff. Now, I have a question. Do you have a dream or a grail watch, as they say?
I do, but I refuse to buy it.
Oh,
so
why?
So I want the Patek Celestial Tourbillon with the diamond baguette bezel.
nice.
And well, they don't make it. So they don't make it with the diamond baguette bezel, but they make the Celestial non-tourbillon with the diamond baguette bezel. I believe, unless I might misspeak here.
Yes, they do. They do. No, they do.
They do, as in I'm wrong.
No, you're right. You're right.
Okay, so I have been I've been in communication with Patek numerous times, trying to get this watch, or trying to have them make me this watch. And are you ready for this?
ready?
I don't qualify.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't
What does
qualify.
that mean?
It means they vet you to see, what Pateks you've bought over the past 20 years. Have you taken them in annually for their service? Have you bought throughout the entire range or just some specific types? And
Yeah.
me, I only have the Nautiluses because that's what I like. And unfortunately, that doesn't qualify me to, let alone buy the regular Celestion Tourbillon, but the one with a diamond bezel that they'd have to make for me. They I don't want to say they laughed at me, but they did. They laughed at me.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
I keep
I'm
trying.
sure they
Though.
were very polite in their laughter, though. That's
One.
Not
Oh,
so
wow.
much.
No, I think I know a guy who's got the non-baguette Celestial, and it's quite the watch. But yeah, if you can't get it and they won't sell you it, move on. What is an interesting comparison that comes up though is obviously you're a massive car guy, and we haven't even scraped the surface of cars. We might have to do that another time. But it sounds like when you get to that level of grail in this realm of the Patek that's $500,000, or it's probably more than that with the baguettes. It's probably 600, 700.
I think it's actually 1.6 million.
Yeah, wow. See, there you go. It just goes crazy.
The Tourbillon, yeah, it's crazy.
It goes crazy, and then you have it's the same hoops for things like Ferrari and GT cars. What would you choose if you could only have one, watches or cars, as a vice?
Oh man, that's horrible. Don't make me make a call on that one. Wow.
Choose one of them.
I can only have one car or a watch.
No, you can only have one hobby, watches or cars.
Oh, I can only have one hobby. Well, watches take up a lot less room.
That's true.
That's for sure. You don't have to worry about a pickup truck ramming into your watch. But gosh, would I be allowed to have one car if I could have a lot of watches? I mean,
No, you're walking.
no,
have to
you
walk.
are, but it's like a Honda Civic.
oh, that's horrible. Nothing against Honda Civics, but man,
Well, it's like a
couldn't at least
commuter.
have one Ferrari. I mean.
No,
I'm glad this is audio only because there's tears running down my face at this point.
Not even one Ferrari? Are you kidding me?
No,
I have
I'll
to have a
upgrade it.
Ferrari.
You can have a.
I haven't look, since the age of 24. I haven't had a year without a Ferrari. I've always owned a Ferrari from the age of 24.
Jesus,
at least one, sometimes multiple, but at least one. I don't think I'd not know what to do with myself if I didn't have a Ferrari.
I think that's your answer.
Sounds like you've answered then.
But
Okay,
no,
I have another
I've got
question.
to have a watch too, or I've got to have a lot of watches.
You'd be late otherwise.
Yeah, I could do away with food and other things, but goodness gracious. Well, I here's what I'd say. I would have a nice watch collection and one Ferrari. How's that?
Okay.
We'll let you have
take
that
it.
one.
We'll take it. One last question before we get into recommendations, because I need to know. How important is it to match your watch strap to your shoes and or shirt?
It's not important at all. I do it.
You do it. Okay. How important to you is it?
Well, again, I'm in a very. I don't want to sound like some lunatic, or I also don't want to sound big-headed. But I'm in a very fortunate position where I'm lucky enough to have a selection, and within that selection, it's difficult for me not to be able to find a watch that matches what I'm wearing. So I do try to match a watch with what I'm wearing, and also the purpose of what it is that I'm actually doing. Bearing in mind that I have to keep my watches in a bank vault at the bank. My insurance company won't let me keep them at home, so it is somewhat of a nuisance sometimes. But what I'll do is I'll drive to the bank and flip a watch out early in the morning, and then I'm set for the day. But I do like to match. I mean, I even do that with cars. I try to match my outfit with my car, and it's a bit eccentric, but there you go.
But you love it, and you said it's you don't need a different watch for every outfit. That's the beauty of straps, and you can have the same watch on 7 different straps if you want for the week. So it's and I think that is the beauty of. I mean, it goes the same for outfits, but that's the beauty of the right watch being versatile. You can just mix the straps up and have that same amount of fun.
That's true. And if watch manufacturers are listening to this, and I hope they are, it would be nice if everybody put a quick release change on the strap so that it takes 2 seconds instead of having to get tools and go to a jeweler.
Yeah, it becomes a bit messy sometimes, and you just end up leaving it. Well, that's great. What we like to do to wrap a show out is ask recommendations. We get a really diverse group of guests, and we like to hear what different people like doing to kind of kill the spare time that they have. So, Michael, have you been listening to anything, watching anything, reading anything that you think the listeners would enjoy?
Yeah, well, I've recently, this is going to make me sound like some kind of a madman. I am addicted currently to a television series on Netflix called Dexter.
Sure.
And,
oh, yeah.
It's about a really nice guy who just happens to be a serial killer and mutilates people, and it's the funnest show ever. I mean, it's hilarious in a non-funny way, but it's great, and I'm totally addicted to it. And if somebody hasn't seen it, I strongly recommend that. And there's another show also on Netflix called Cuckoo, and Cuckoo is the most ridiculous show you'll ever see, but it's very smart humor. It's a British show, and just tune into Cuckoo. You'll enjoy it.
That's a weird show. Yeah,
great recommendations. Very, very strong. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. You're Producer Michael everywhere, at Producer Michael on socials. Type it into YouTube. We'll link it up, and obviously you've got your website where everything is housed. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute treat, and I think we're going to have to get you back to talk cars because we didn't have enough time.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me. I promise I'll let Kevin know and see if I can get him on your channel too.
Love it. Thank you so much.
All the very best to you guys.
Whew. That was a chat, Felix. That was a solid chat. Cool guy to talk to. Really interesting take on luxury. As always, follow Producer Michael. Link up all of his accounts on his YouTube. He's just hit that big 1 million plaque. So we appreciate him taking the time to come on. Really fun to talk to him. As always, Felix, we got to thank some people.
Who do we have to thank?
I'll give you the honours.
Well, we've got to thank Longines. They're the main ones. They're the people this week who have made the magic happen, so to speak. Also, someone making the magic happen is, of course, Major Tom Media. He makes the magic happen constantly.
Major magic.
Major magic. If you want to thank us for any reason, or you could, want to, say we did something wrong, you could email otthepodcast@gmail.com. Address those emails to Andy, please. And if you want to, slide into our DMs and say how great we are, you can do that at ot.podcast.
And address those to Felix, right?
Yeah. Well, and as
naturally.
always, thanks to you guys for listening. Please, like, subscribe, share, review, tell. Word of mouth. Word of mouth is the way to get the podcast out there. If I've learned anything from Adam Buxton and Producer Michael, that's what it is. So tell your friends, tell your neighbours, tell the postman. As usual.
Tell everyone.
Yeah.
Cool.
We're going to go now.
See ya.